Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel where I talk all about learning a language through the act of reading. So I just want to do another quick update today. I know I haven't put up any of my other videos yet. I am still currently working through those, but I wanted to put up another short video today, just giving another progress update to let you know how things are going. And as I expected, things aren't going quite the way that I wanted them to. And the only reason that this hasn't really discouraged me, well, I mean, it did a little bit, but not as bad as it normally does, is because I was prepared for this. I knew that this was most likely going to happen at some point, because it usually happens, this type of thing usually happens within the first couple of weeks of me starting, or the first couple of months, even sometimes at the longest, of me starting to utilize a new learning method, like switching to reading being the way that I'm learning. And that's mostly because I'm still, like, while I know that this is helping me learn more, I'm still in the process of figuring out exactly how best to do it, which is another video that I'm going to make, is kind of what I've started to figure out. And as I solidify it more, I'll kind of update you on that as well. So, like I said, I expected it to happen. I knew that it was coming. And so when it did happen, I wasn't as upset about it as I normally get. I'm actually feeling okay about it. You know, it's not that big of a deal. So, what I have been doing, I haven't really been doing Ollie Richards' story learning course. I do need to get back into doing that more often. But the problem that I was having was that the story learning course in itself was not motivating me enough. I think it's the fact that the story itself wasn't motivating me. I mean, it's a decent story, and I do want to know what happens. And actually, that's not even a good way to say it. It's not the story itself that's... Because like I said, I do want to know what happens. I think it's the language that's used, because it is meant for, like, super beginners. The language in it is very simple. It is repeated a lot, which is a good thing. But there's a lot of repetition, and you go through the short chapter, and then you have the 3 videos to watch, which can at times either be 8 minutes long, or there's some of them that were like, I think there was one of them that was like, was it 30 minutes long or something like that? So it is a decent chunk of time, which sometimes with, 2 kids can be a little difficult to find the time for. So I am trying to get back into doing that more often, but that's not something that I'm going to attempt to do every single day. I have also changed up a little bit in the way I've scheduled it. I'm doing less studying during on my work days, like today, and I'm doing more studying on my weekends. I'm utilizing that time that I'm off to do a lot more studying. I'm still studying on my work days. I'm getting a little bit of exposure. I'm watching a show in Spanish. I'm doing a little bit of reading in Spanish. I'm doing at least something for generally at least 15 minutes, 30 if I can manage it. And so I am still getting it. So what I am doing, how I've kind of been getting myself back into it and back into just making sure that I'm actually doing this every day, is that I started reading James y el Melocotón Gigante, which, for those of you who don't know, that's James and the Giant Peach. Melocotón is apparently, I learned from one of my coworkers when I was talking to her about it, Melocotón is a very, like, highbrow, prissy, super formal way of saying peach. She told me what the more casual one was, or what she calls it, but I had my headphone in and I couldn't quite hear her. So I don't know what it was, but I started reading James and the Giant Peach, which is a story that I wanted to read anyway. And it's one that I had never read before, and I used to really like the movie, and so I wanted to read the book. I've never read any of Roald Dahl's stuff, and as far as I can tell, all of it has been translated into Spanish, and so I do want to actually read a lot, if not all of it. Like, I'm really interested to read them and see what those stories were like, because there's a lot of people that I know that have read them. But ever since I started reading that, I felt a lot more motivated to sit down and do it. there was a lot more motivation for me coming from that than there was from Ollie Richards' story learning method. That's not to say I'm not motivated to do the story learning method at all. I am, because I do really enjoy that method. It's just, I'm thinking partially has to do with my ADHD brain, that the idea of and the thought of sitting down like that and just watching a video to learn something doesn't necessarily appeal to me when the video is actually teaching you something. You know, I'll sit down and learn something from a show and be just fine when it's, you know, not a show that's actually, you know, meant to teach you something. Like I'm watching The Dragon Prince in Spanish, and it's just a regular show. Or I'm reading James y el Melocotón Gigante. I'm just reading it. I'm not, like, it's not intended for me to learn Spanish. That's just how I'm using it. And I think that has helped my motivation a little bit. And so the last couple of days, I have felt more motivated to make sure that I'm studying Spanish every day. So, not a whole lot of progress this week, but I am starting to figure things out better. And it makes me even more so look forward to how this is going to go moving forward. Just because, to me, figuring that out is half the problem. It's half the battle. Once you can figure out what's going to motivate you, how best to motivate yourself, all that type of stuff, that is what's going to keep you going. Because that motivation is the thing I mentioned in my first video. The motivation is the core of what you're doing. The motivation is more important than the method that you're using, just because you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to study. And that's what I feel is, like, most days, not necessarily every day, but most days, I want to study Spanish. I look forward to the times when I'm going to have free time to study Spanish. So that's just kind of how I've started to look at it. And it's, you know, I haven't necessarily made a whole lot of progress in Spanish, but I've made a lot of progress in terms of motivation, shall we say. So, anyways, that's it for this week's progress update. I will be back next week with another progress update, and hopefully here soon with another video where I talk about my absolute failure in Japanese and the lessons that I learned from it, so that hopefully you all don't make the same mistakes that I did. So, until next time, I will see you all later.